All right, so today we're going to look at ecological tolerance. This is a really short video, but it's a really important concept that you're going to see over and over again throughout the year when we start looking at disturbances or disruptions. Remember, so we've been looking at what changes biodiversity, how is biodiversity affected, and then for this week we're going to look at, well, what do organisms do when there's a disruption in their environment and they have to adapt? So this is the learning objective to describe ecological tolerance. We're going to look at ecological tolerance refers to the range of conditions such as temperature, salinity, flow rate, and sunlight that an organism can endure before injury or death results. And it can apply to individuals and also to species. So if you think about organisms that live in any environment, you can think about the conditions that is their niche or where they survive. For instance, even as humans, we can't live in all temperatures. You know, we have a range of temperatures that become prohibitive for us to live or survive. And so there is this range of temperatures where human beings can exist. So all species and organisms have these ranges in different environmental conditions in their habitat, and depends on their genetic makeup and things like that that determine those. A perfect example is, let's look at salmon. So salmon has a range of tolerance from about 6 degrees to 22. That, if you think about for centigrade, 25 degrees centigrade is room temperature. They like to live in cold water. But some individual salmon have adapted. They have genes that have randomly occurred. We're going to talk about this later this week. They have randomly occurred that allow them to tolerate warmer waters. So if we want to describe this range, we're going to do this graphically, and this is the graph that you have in your focus sheet for your focus sheet. So if I look at, let's just look at pH. Actually, let's look at temperature because that's something we kind of understand. An organism is going to have this preferred range. So along here is the temperature, let's say, going from 0 high temperature, or you could say pH from 0 to 14. So the actual factor, or we call these limiting factors, the actual factor is down on the x-axis, and then the number of organisms that live is on the y-axis. So the higher the peak, the more the organisms live at that factor's value. So there's going to be this range in here where it's very optimum. And if I start to go lower than that range, I'm going to start getting stress. If I go higher than that range, I'm going to start being stressed to the point where at some value that those conditions are incompatible with the life of that organism. And this is really important for us to know because we do things to our environment. We change the pH. It could be a pollution event. We change the temperature based maybe on some kind of thermal pollution. We change sunlight. We change these factors. We cause these factors to change. And we create an environment which is outside the optimum range for that species, to where they become stressed. And so we watch for these things as environmental scientists to see if we have caused decrease in growth, decrease in activity, things like that of that organism. So it's a very simple, intuitive type of idea, but you need to know how to discuss this graphically. So what you're going to do, I've got one of these focus sheets on every one of your tables. It's in the same report sleeve that you had for your succession yesterday. And what you're going to do is you're going to copy this into your focus sheet, and then I want you to add to that salinity, flow rate, and sunlight in an arrow at the bottom. And you're going to show how you would show too little, too much of each of those factors. And really salinity, flow rate, sunlight, pH, temperature, and also sometimes you'll see dissolved oxygen are the major limiting factors that we see when we look at ecological tolerance. So grab those, get those in your focus sheets, and then when you're done with that, you can do the graphing activity, which is on the back table of the classroom, and the graphing activity will be turned in as an other grade.